Hello, namaste, and welcome everybody. This is a Transitional Artificial Intelligence Research Group seminar series. This week we have the topic large language models for sentiment analysis on newspaper articles during COVID-19. And we study the Guardian. So actually this is part of a master's group work thesis, and I was the supervisor with Eka. And Baicheng is going to give the rest of the presentation, and I will jump in later. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. I think Qingying will help us to introduce the overview and the next part.
Hi, everyone. And first, let me introduce. We have 4 parts today. And the first part is the background and the literature review. The second part is the framework and technical details. The third part is the results with data visualization. And the final part is discussion and conclusion. So first, let me introduce the background of our study. And the COVID-19 pandemic was a highly contagious and catastrophic global event. Social uncertainty and fear brought by the COVID-19 pandemic have led to social unrest and instability. Therefore, the government needed to take measures to control the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The relationship between the COVID-19 and the social media, we can see that Facebook, Weibo, and Twitter were widely used to disseminate information about infection cases during the COVID-19 pandemic. Social media users share their thoughts on the pandemic and express various concerns and sentiments. And also, social media has also been used as a medium for misinformation during COVID-19. SendWeb dataset is the dataset we use to fine-tune the models. The Guardian, which is the prominent international newspaper, has provided detailed news report of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because the Guardian covers many fields such as religious belief, technology, war, medicine, and we consider it a credible media outlet and have chosen it as the source of data for our study. And we obtain the Guardian dataset from the cargo, filter it by publication dates and section names. The dataset includes articles from world news, opinion, Australian news, and UK news sections. Divided into pre-COVID-19 and during COVID-19 periods, quarterly analysis reveals shifts in reporting priorities and language used during COVID-19. SendWeb dataset is a dataset we use to fine-tune the models. The SendWeb dataset contains 105 million tweets and Weibo messages in 6 languages. It includes 41,000 text items and over 106 million untext posts, making it widely used for COVID-19 sentiment analysis. So we selected 10,000 English tweets manually labeled by 15 experts, including 10 different sentiments such as optimistic, sensible, enthusiastic, pessimistic, anxious, sad, annoyed, denial, official report, and joking. So to process the text data from the Guardian, we employ natural language processing methods. NLP is a field of artificial intelligence that enables computers to understand, interpret, manipulate, and generate human language. The development of NLP has benefited from advance in machine learning and deep learning, enabling NLP systems to yield favorable outcomes when tackling intricate language tasks. Large language models can be regarded as an application within the field of NLP. LLMs refer to neural network models with a large number of parameters and extensive pre-training, and mainly employed for natural language understanding tasks. Sentiment analysis, which is the most important method in our study. Sentiment analysis in NLP aims at identifying and understanding the sentiment expressed within a text, typically by detecting emotions such as positive, negative, and neutral, and it has extensive applications across various domains. recurrent neural networks. It is a deep learning models for processing sequential data, prominent for processing text data and performing tasks such as sentiment analysis. The basic structure of an RNN includes one or more recurrent neural network units, and it has a certain degree of flexibility and can handle input sequences of various lengths. Long short-term memory network. It is an advanced RNN for modeling data that have long-term dependencies. It enables the capturing of relationships between key terms across extensive text messages. LSTM can exhibit strong generalization capabilities, and it requires substantial training time and computational resources. The limitation of LSTM is that it's susceptible to overfitting. The transformer model is an advanced encoder-decoder LSTM with attention mechanism that was designed for NLP tasks. It's capable for processing all elements within the input sequence concurrently, which can take into account the relationship between each word and all other words. It can compute in parallel effectively, which is beneficial for recognizing different sentiments. The transformer requires significant computational resources for training, including considerable time and space. BERT, which is the main model in our study, is a pre-trained LLM used for various NLP tasks, including sentiment analysis. Its main feature is the use of the transformer encoding component, achieving bidirectional language representation learning. And it operates in two main phases, pre-training and fine-tuning. Roberta is a variant that utilizes larger scale datasets for pre-training, longer sequence lengths, dynamic masking, and enhance the model performance and generalization capability. In comparison to BERT, Roberta requires a large volume of text data and a deeper network structure, resulting in longer training times. N-gram analysis. So first is the overview. The N-gram model is a commonly used technique in natural language processing that reviews contigs and elements in text data to make prediction or analysis data. The model assumes that each element depends only on its previous element and captures local information within the data through its local dependency. The application of the N-gram model in news media analysis is that researchers use the N-gram model to statistically analyze new articles to understand the sentiments and themes within, finding review preference of different statistical measures in accessing word sequence, aiding in understanding media focus and expressions towards specific topics. The advantages of N-gram model is that it's easy to understand and implement. It's suitable for processing large-scale data and is effective in analyzing local relationships within text. And the limitation of the N-gram model is that its inability to capture long-distance dependencies, and it has requirement for large training data, and it has limitations in handling rare combinations. And next, Baicheng will introduce the framework and technical details and the results of our study.
Thank you for Qingying for the introduction. I'm delighted to present to you our framework and key technical details. This is our framework. Our framework consists of a series of steps such as data cleaning, model building, model refinement, result analysis, and visualization. As Qingying mentioned before, our main data source are the Guardian and the Sunwave dataset. To begin, we select and filter the Guardian dataset, choose the opinion, the Australia news, and the UK news, and the world news. This because this four is not so representable. And we select the range from the January 2018 to March 2022, according to the announcement of the World Health Organization. Then we select English language tweets manually labeled by 50 experts. That's the sandwich data set. The tweets encompass 10 sentiments, which is suitable for what we want to do on the Guardian. During the data processing, we utilize tools like natural language toolkit to clean and processing the data set, removing noise such as tags, subwords, and web hyperlinks. To step 3, we drew quarterly diagram and transform to more intuitively reflect the content of the Guardian article. By the way, we will observe n-gram based on specific sentiment after the model labels the sentiment of that. The next step, we clean the sum of data sets as like the Guardian, but not the same because the sum of data sets is the tweet. It includes many other things like emojis. Next, we refine the pre-trained BERT and Roberta model from Hugging Face using the clean the sum of data set. We then perform sentiment analysis and the multi-label sentiment classification on the Guardian article to reveal the slightly sentiment changes during the pandemic. Let's move to the technical details. We utilize tools like Hugging Face Transformer library for the pre-trained model and the torch for tensor operation. And our model, approximately 400 metabits in size, was trained in a GPU accelerated environment. The detail is on the PDF. This is to ensuring efficient computational processing. By the sandwich data setting to training to testing set at a ratio of 9:1 and using a batch size of 8 and a learning rate of 1 times 10 to the power of -5 and twice that many for that. And our training process spanned 4 epochs. Now let's move to the next part, the result and the visualization. So firstly is the model evaluation part. After we flattening our model, we evaluation the model's performance, and we carefully evaluate key metrics such as Hamming loss, J-Coda scores, label ranking average pressure scores, F1 macro score, and F1 micro score. The reason for evaluating the model with this parameter is that we're performing a multi-label classification. Accepting the Hamming loss require a lower value. All other indicators require a higher value to indicate the better performance of the multi-label classification model. By analyzing the results in this table, we can see that except the F1 macro score, the BERT is slightly better than Roberta. Other indicators show that Roberta performance better. Let's move to the data analysis part. We begin by presenting statistics on COVID-19 death cases as reported in the Guardian, Australia, and the UK news. This figure compares the number of the Guardian articles to the number of death cases over 9 quarters, from the first quarter of 2020 to the first quarter of 2022, which is also according to the World Health Organization announcement. So COVID-19 death, the COVID-19 death cases data was sourced from the Australia Bureau of Statistics and the UK Office for National Statistics. In the case of Australia, we observed spikes in COVID-19 death cases count during the third quarter of 2020 and the fourth quarter of 2021 and the first quarter of 2022. And for the UK part, we noticed that the spike happens in the second quarter of 2020 and the fourth quarter of 2020, first quarter of 2021. From the Australian news part, we can say slightly corresponding that the death cases relate to the number of articles. But for the UK news, they are not. This indicates a potential disconnecting between the public health data and media research. Next, we compare sentiment detected by BERT and Rohitash model. This revealing sentiment distribution with the Guardian, which includes the Australia, UK, and world news and opinion section. From January 2018 to March 2022, provided insight into overall media sentiment. Notably, official report emerges as the dominant sentiment category regardless of the large language model, aligning with the news objectively. However, these dominance hinder capturing broader epidemic-related sentiment. Thus, we will exclude the official report in the subsequent analysis to delve deeper into sentiment landscape in the Guardian during this period. This approach aims to uncover unique sentiment patterns beyond the official report, offering a deeper understanding of collective epidemic sentiment. Additionally, significant difference between BERT and the Rohitash model lies in the count of official reports, anxious, and denial, and sad this sentiment. This graphing, let's move to this graph. This graph illustrates sentiment distribution across Australia, UK, and world news. Clearly shows how the context of the particular region influence the poetry of sentiment. Despite the smaller UK dataset, which is approximately 1,000 fewer articles less than Australia, we can find that sad is more prominent in UK news, which may reflect that a higher COVID-19 mortality rate in UK, like we say the best case before, than Australia during the pandemic. Moreover, it's noteworthy that sentiments such as optimistic, thankful, and even joking are more prevalent in UK news compared to Australian news. For the world news, because it has the most number of articles, so the higher is reasonable. But we know that this the phenomenon that indicate we can say that the world news have a more higher negative sentiment than UK and Australian news. This indicates a cultural or educational bias towards remaining hopeful and grateful even the facing of dire circumstances. Let's move to this is the key pointer of the last graph. Let's move to customer sentiment. Analyzing the changes in sentiment polarity of Guardian article before and during COVID can provide insight into sentiment at different stages. We assign weight to each sentiment and compute the customer sentiment polarity score for the Guardian article. Show that in this table, which positive score indicates favorable sentiment towards the statement and the negative score indicates unfavorable sentiment. So, to the Guardian 2020, the surge in positive sentiment can be attributed to increased empathy, positive media coverage, and the resilience, hope, and inspiration people have shown in the face of challenges. The fluctuation in sentiment polarity indicates a most negative trend in pre-COVID-19 and the post-COVID-19 article. It's less than zero. Likely influenced by the higher proportional of negative sentimental weight. Analysis spanning the first quarter of 2018 to the first quarter of 2022 for Australia and the UK reflects emotional fluctuation during the pandemic. The Australia part exhibited a declining trend in sentiment polarity from the second quarter of 2020 to the fourth quarter of 2020, likely due to the global surge in COVID-19 cases. This decline continued until the fourth quarter of 2021, possibly influenced by the Australia's increased cases and socio-economic factors. A rebounder in sentiment polarity in the UK during the first quarter of 2022 is attributed to the pandemic stabilization in the UK. For the world part, the global sentiment polarity fluctuated downward throughout the COVID-19 period, particularly evident in the first quarter of 2021. 2022 reflects the pandemic's negative impact on global sentiment and well-being. Regional difference in sentiment polarity value may be due to factors such as epidemic response measure, vaccination rate changes, and the economic recovery efforts. Okay, this is some key points. And let's move to in this part, we will have an understanding of the impact of COVID-19 on the scale and the news reports by The Guardian. And this can be done by comparing sentiment analysis results pre-COVID and during COVID. So this figure shows the correlation of sentiment using the Rohitash model. This figure shows the distribution of sentiment using Rohitash model. Covering both pre-COVID and during COVID period. From the analysis, it can be seen that both periods was dominated by negative sentiment. In this graph of sentiment of Guardian's opinion section, the second graph, the Guardian opinion section, we use the official report because in this part is the only one that other sentiments beyond the official report. Typically, official reports domain due to neutral nature of news. However, in the opinion section, annoyed and denial are more permanent. Reflecting the contrary and the subjective nature of opinion article, the unique distribution underscore how opinion pieces differ from standard news coverage by express more varied and personal sentiment. We can also say that the joking has decreased, indicates that during COVID, the style of article has shifted to a more serious tone. So this is the sentiment. This is sentiment by different regions, and specifically, Rohitash identify annoying as the most common sentiment, followed close by denial and sad for these three regions. The outbreak of the pandemic led to a significant increase in anxious and sad in this model, reflecting the global uncertainty and sadness caused by this crisis. This change highlights the deep sentiment impact of COVID on social sentiment, which echoes through the tone of news range. Interestingly, despite the surge of negative sentiment, the model also recorded an increase in positive sentiment, such as optimistic and thankful during the pandemic. So in this three graphs, we can easily say that negative emotions such as denial, sad, and annoying are most prominent. And comparing changes in sentiment before and after COVID, the negative sentiment comparing Australia and the world news has increased compared to before, but in UK, it's contrary. So we have observed sentiment trends before and during COVID, but doesn't explain why certain sentiments like denial, annoying were expressed. To understand that, the reason behind the sentiment, we need to analyze the text where the large language model detected them using trigram analysis. This involved identifying the sentiment first and then delving deeper into corresponding text to uncover the underlying causes. Based on the previous test cases graph, Australia experienced a minor peak in test cases in the third quarter of 2020, reflecting to the prevalent sentiment identified during the same period, which specifically indicates sad, annoying, and denial. So we select these three sentiments and extract trigram. The first graph displays traces from this trigram, such as healthy human service, like the third one, and the hotel quarantine program. For the healthy human service, it may relate to medical service during the COVID-19 crisis, where the hotel quarantine program probably pertain to the quarantine policy included during the pandemic. Return to the test cases graph. After a minor peak of the third quarter of 2020 in Australia, until the third quarter of 2021, another peak. So we pick the point to create another trigram. We can say that local health distinct and the chief health officer. And except these two, there are no COVID-19 related trigrams. This suggests that media and public attention may have shifted to other event issue or topic. As the number of death cases continue to rise, the public attention has once again shifted toward COVID-19. We can say from the third paragraph, and the first one is the repeated antigen test. And we also can say that positive repeat antigen suggests an increase in positive repeat antigen test result. This uptick reflects the increasing number of COVID-19 cases and the accelerated spread of the virus. We can only renew focus on the pandemic. Move to the world part. The first figure shows before COVID-19, the world news section covered a diverse range of topics, from the human rights issue to prime minister. In contrast, the second one illustrates the trigram extract from the Guardian article in the world news section. And this analysis filtered out sentiments across associated with denial, annoyed, anxious, and sad from the January 2020 to December 2020. Notably, terms like health, social care, personal protective equipment, and intensive care unit (ICU) were frequently mentioned. This highlights the focus, attention, and the importance gives to the COVID-19 by the world news section. Demonstrates the concentrated response to the challenge of the pandemic. And the next figure is the quarter sentiment distribution of Australia. Using the Rohitash model. This is we use this to prove that in Australia's peak quarter, which sentiment like the denial, sad, annoyed is the most. And have the sample articles that labeled by the data model, and for more details, I think this is in our article. So the next part will be discussed at the conclusion.
Hi, and I will introduce the discussion and conclusion part. So first is the limitations. A limitation of this study is that we fine-tune the model using the same data set, which consists of millions of tweets and Weibo messages sourced from social media. The information posted on social media often contains numerous abbreviations, internet slang, and emojis, which pose a challenge for training our model for sentiment analysis. Another limitation is the lack of representativeness in the data we selected. Since the news articles were exclusively sourced from The Guardian, the sentiment analysis may not reflect the global sentiment towards the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, with the increasing prevalence of social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Weibo, people are more inclined to share their thoughts and feelings in real time. Information obtained from news media primarily represents the editorial stance of the outlet rather than the authentic sentiments of the populace towards the COVID-19 pandemic. And in future work, we can utilize existing models to conduct sentiment analysis on news reports from various news media outlets during the COVID-19 pandemic, aiming to understand the public sentiment in different countries and thereby gain a more comprehensive understanding of the global COVID-19 situation. Meanwhile, more LLMs can be applied to this study, such as the GPT model. Building upon the framework of this study, new fine-tuning models can be employed to conduct sentiment analysis on news reports related to various epidemics. Additionally, combining semantic modeling with sentiment analysis could provide deeper insights into emerging topics relevant to government policies, such as lockdown and vaccination programs. Furthermore, future research in sentiment analysis can utilize more accurate and effective machine models and related analytical techniques such as multimodal techniques, integrating various media forms like text, audio, and video. And during the conclusion part, during the COVID-19 pandemic, various media platforms engaged in extensive news reporting, reflecting the complex emotional implications of the public. We employed large language models like BERT and Roberta to conduct sentiment analysis on news and opinion articles from The Guardian. The results show that both models have similar capabilities when predicting refined sentiments from the same dataset. We proceeded with Roberta for further analysis as it provides advantage over BERT when it comes to computational aspects. The results indicate that initial stages of the pandemic, public sentiment were primarily focused on the urgent response to the crisis. As the situation evolved, the emotional emphasis shifted towards addressing the enduring impacts on health and the economy. Our results report that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the location of the emotional text in news articles from The Guardian indicates a significant increase in the frequency of articles within either one or two emotional labels, highlighting an increased focus on dominant sentiments in news reporting. In comparison of sentiments detected between news articles from Australia and the UK, we found that Australian articles focused more on addressing the immediate crisis, while the UK reports placed greater emphasis on social impacts and mental health. This could be attributed to the UK expressing higher separatism during the pandemic, which is reflected the prevalence of negative sentiments in its news reporting. Although the reports were also frequently exhibited a positive perspective, in comparison with related studies about COVID-19 sentiment analysis from social media, we found it between the news media suggesting that social media offers a more diversified emotional reflection. It is difficult to context the grim narrative found in traditional news media such as The Guardian with overall dominance of negative sentiments pre and during COVID-19. And at the end of the presentation, by far the greatest thanks must go to our supervisor, Dr. Rohit and Dr. Eka. We are grateful for the guidance, patience, and sincere teachings provided by our 6 supervisors, as well as for their care and support throughout the process. We also thank Iroma and Ifan Dai for their support and contributions to the initial version of this paper.
Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, everyone. We'll take some questions and then we'll demonstrate the GitHub repo. Yeah. Right. So, questions? Welcome. I just want to highlight something here. Actually, this we do not have the results to show in here, but we have included that in our paper, where we are comparing this with our previous results, where we previous study 2021, where I did work in sentiment analysis for India, for the case of India, and it's also capturing the SendWave dataset, which is doing sentiment analysis for the rest of the world based on tweets, right? And COVID-19 tweet dataset. And if you see the distribution of sentiments there, you will see that joking actually is quite high. So it's like, and during COVID-19, we found that joking or humor was a very strong sentiment that was expressed, right? So that was what tweets all around the world did, and they kind of balanced the discussion, expression of how COVID, and basically, I mean, we saw some trends, and that kind of that type of work can motivate studies in psychology about how people react during a pandemic, right? But as you can see here, and in the previous ones, before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, we see that there's not a huge difference in the negative sentiments, general negative sentiments expressed through the Guardian. And that's basically part of the business model of Western newspapers. Generally, you see negative news reported far much more than the positive news. So it's an interesting comparison, and furthermore, these bigrams or these trigrams, they kind of point towards the topic modeling work that can happen after this. Furthermore, to add another thing in the future study, I think this research is basically giving opening the doors. We are giving the software, the data, the open source code with this study, and this paper is available in arXiv. And basically, the same framework can be used to investigate other issues during COVID-19. And that could be a number of things, you know, how about vaccine sentiments and other things. Anyway, so I have a question from Rodney. Yes, Rodney.
It's more a comment. When you go on to do future work, I think one thing to bear in mind when you look at the results here is that The Guardian is a politically left-leaning newspaper. If you'd taken, done a sentiment analysis for a newspaper that was somewhat more right-leaning, then I think the denial figures would have been much higher.
Perhaps, yes, and that's a good comment about the left and the right wing politics.
Yeah, so that gives you a control for the experiment. If you can find a data source for a more right-leaning newspaper to see if there's much difference.
And the reason we did this for The Guardian was because it was readily and easily available in Canada. Yeah. Right, so this whole thing can be repeated for other newspapers, and you can compare different newspapers.
Exactly. Another comment was that came up towards the end was what that I thought of was that the UK is quite different from a lot of other countries as far as disease outbreaks go, because they've gone through in relatively recent history two major disease outbreaks prior to COVID. One was the BSE outbreak, which affected people, and the other was the foot and mouth disease outbreak, which was confined to farms but affected the food supply chain quite heavily. So the attitudes to disease outbreaks in the UK are going to be quite different to, say, somewhere like Australia or the US due to the past experience of people with disease outbreaks. And that's had a huge impact in the UK, particularly in terms of research funding for epidemiology, for example, where they invest much more than many other countries.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. And
Yep.
just to add further, we had a project about analysis of the political biases in newspapers, and we had a student working on that, the sentiments and the topics, but that project is on hold and we're looking for another student to continue on that. The student left. So artificial intelligence for politics and media is a core theme of our group, and we'd like to explore more in that area. So any other questions or comments? No. Okay, so you can continue with the GitHub repository, I guess. Yeah. So where's could you ask the question again, please?
Oh, sorry. So the question is about looking at specifically anti-vaxxer sentiments in this project. Did you consider it?
For the I think for this question, our Dr. Rohit did this before.
Yes, we already have a paper on anti-vaccine sentiment analysis during the different stages of COVID-19, and that paper is available in archive and it's under review. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll look at those. Yeah, that seems like a very interesting thing to see how that trend passed through time.
Yes, yes. So I leave this now to you guys to go over the GitHub repo.
So for the GitHub part, we have the birth model for building birth model and refinement of it. So we use Glow, just following the Rohit's research. And for the Roberta model, we also have a Python notebook that maybe know. And the visualization part is that how we generate those paragraphs that we use in our PowerPoint and our articles. And here this tooling is the data set and our model that this tooling I think is our model. One for Roberta, one for yes. And this one is labeled Guardian data set. And for the visualization part, this one is to generate the clarity score.
That quality score is a Python.
Yeah, it's a Python code.
Didn't have the right.
Yeah.
Python.
Okay.
It's fine. Don't open the notebook.
Okay. Yeah. And for the result part, here's the birth model labeled like the Australian news, the Kenyan part, and the UK part, the world news part. It's because the world news is bigger than 50 metabits, so I sent it as a VIP. Others are CSV. And the result of raw beta is same as the first. For cells. So the filtered guardian is that what we did to the guardian, and the framework which we did by Visual.
Yeah, then, thank you, everyone. Any other questions or comments? All right, then I'll just stop the recording and open any questions after the recording. Thank you. Right. Thank you. Okay, just one comment about your notebooks. I see some of them have links where you're reading the things here. Yeah. And then you're reading the you know, so you have to ensure all those that have like filtered guardian. Yeah. So you have this, yeah, this will not open. It needs to be something that is already in the GitHub repo.
Okay.
And it has to be that, you know, nobody knows what this is. Yeah. Right. So it needs to have a relative path. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So we'll go